Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hari Unka Hari Bo. Prabhu Ba. Jai Guru Premanande. Ching chang.
Power's off, it's not off now. Huh? Yeah, I know. The power's on now. Should be good. Welcome back to the live studios here in Govardhan, Iskan Bhaktivedanta Ashram. Welcome to all the new attendees in this yagya, the Kartik Brat of reading Srimad Bhagavatam every day. Before we read Bhagavatam, we always recite Srila Sanatana Goswami's beautiful, deep prayer glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's called Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdipi Yusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drik Prada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths. You are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu Kalidwan Doditaditya Shri Krishna Parihartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Bharshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Shri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Mannistada Magad Bhagya Madananda Namostume. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadutadayin adini chuchatakada hanamunchagadachin mam premnarit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me, always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we've reached the 7th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 2, 3. Hiranyakashipu's plan to become immortal. Text 1. Narada Muni said to Maharaj Yudhishthir, the demoniac king Hiranyakashipu wanted to be unconquerable and free from old age and dwindling of the body. He wanted to gain all the yogic perfections like anima, excuse me, and lagima, to be deathless and to be the only king of the entire universe, including Brahmaloka. Purport. Such are the goals of the austerities performed by demons. Hiranyakashipu wanted to receive a benediction from Lord Brahma so that in the future he would be able to conquer Lord Brahma's abode. Similarly, another demon received a benediction from Lord Shiva, but later wanted to kill Lord Shiva through that same benediction. Thus, self-interested persons, by demoniac austerity, want to kill even their benedictors, whereas the Vaishnava wants to remain an ever-existing servant of the Lord and never to occupy the post of the Lord. Through Sayuja Mukti, which is generally demanded by asuras, one merges into the existence of the Lord. But although one sometimes thus achieves the goal of the theory of monism, one falls down again to struggle in material existence. text 2. In the valley of Mandara Hill, Hiranyakashipu began performing his austerities by standing with his toes on the ground, keeping his arms upward and looking toward the sky. This position was extremely difficult, but he accepted it as a means to attain perfection. From the hair on Hiranyakashipu's head there emanated an effulgent light as brilliant and intolerable as the rays of the sun at the time of dissolution. Seeing the performance of such austere penances, the demigods, who had been wandering throughout the planets, now returned to their respective homes. 4. Because of Hiranyakashipu's severe austerities, fire came from his head, and this fire and its smoke spread throughout the sky, encompassing the upper and lower planets, which all became extremely hot. Text 5. Because of the power of his severe austerities, all the rivers and oceans were agitated. The surface of the globe, with its mountains and islands, began trembling, and the stars and planets fell. All directions were ablaze. Scorched and extremely disturbed because of Hiranyakashipu's severe penances, all the demigods left the planets where they reside and went to the planet of Lord Brahma, where they informed the Creator as follows. O Lord of the demigods, O Master of the universe, because of the fire emanating from Hiranyakashipu's head as a result of his severe austerities, we have become so disturbed that we could not stay in our planets, but have come to you. O great person, chief of the universe, if you think it proper, kindly stop these disturbances meant to destroy everything before all your obedient subjects are annihilated. Text 8. Hiranyakashipu had undertaken a most severe type of Hiranyakashipu has undertaken a most severe type of austerity. Although his plan is not unknown to you, kindly listen as we submit his intentions. 9 and 10. The Supreme Person within this universe, Lord Brahma, has gotten his exalted post by dint of severe austerities, mystic power, and trance. Consequently, after creating the universe, he has become the most worshipable demigod within it. Since I am eternal, and time is eternal, I shall endeavor for such austerity, mystic power, and trance for many, many births, and thus I shall occupy the same post occupied by Lord Brahma. Purport. Hiranyakashipu's determination was to occupy the post of Lord Brahma, but this was impossible, because Brahma had a long duration of life. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Aharyad Brahmano Viduhu, 1,000 yugas equals 1 day of Brahma. The duration of Brahma's life is extremely great, and consequently it was impossible for Hiranyakashipu to occupy that post. Nonetheless, his decision was that since the self, Atma, and time are both eternal, if he could not occupy that post in one lifetime, he would continue to execute austerities life after life, so that sometime he would be able to do so. By dint of my severe austerities, I shall reverse the results of pious and impious activities. I shall overturn all the established practices within this world. Even Dhruvaloka will be vanquished at the end of the millennium. Therefore, what is the use of it? I shall prefer to remain in the position of Brahma. Purport. Hiranyakashipu's demoniac determination was explained to Lord Brahma by the demigods, who informed him that Hiranyakashipu wanted to overturn all the established principles. After executing severe austerities, people within this material world are promoted to the heavenly planets. But Hiranyakashipu wanted them to be unhappy, suffering because of the diplomatic feelings of the demigods, even in the heavenly planets. He wanted those who were harassed in this world by material transactions to be unhappy for the same reason, even in the heavenly planets. Indeed, he wanted to introduce such harassment everywhere. One might ask how this would be possible, since the been established since memorial, but Hiranyakashipu was proud to declare that he would be able to do everything by the power of his tapasya. He even wanted to make the Vaishnava's position insecure. These are some of the symptoms of asuric determination. 12. O Lord, we have heard from reliable sources that in order to obtain your post, Hiranyakashipu is now engaged in severe austerity. You are the master of the three worlds. Please, without delay, take whatever steps you deem appropriate. Purport. In the material world, a servant is provided for by the master, but is always planning how to capture the master's post. There have been many instances of this in history. Especially in India, during the Mohammedan rule, many servants, by plans and devices, took over the posts of their masters. It is learned from Chaitanya literature that one big zamindar, Subhuti Roy, kept a Mohammedan boy as a servant. Of course, he treated the boy as his own child, and sometimes, when the boy would steal something, the master would chastise him by striking him with a cane. There was a mark on the boy's back, from this chastisement. Later, after that boy had been, by crooked means, become Hussein Shah, Nawab of Bengal, one day his wife saw the mark on his back and inquired about it. The Nawab replied that in his childhood he had been a servant of Subhuti Roy, who had punished him because of some mischievous activities. Upon hearing this, the Nawab's wife immediately became agitated and requested her husband to kill Subhuti Roy. Nawab Hussein Shah, of course, was very grateful to Subhuti Roy, and therefore refused to kill him. But when his wife requested him to turn Subhuti Roy into a Mohammedan, the Nawab agreed. Taking some water from his water pot, he sprinkled it upon Subhuti Roy and declared that Subhuti Roy had now become a Mohammedan. The point is that this Nawab had been an ordinary menial servant of Subhuti Roy, but was somehow or other able to occupy the supreme post of Nawab of Bengal. This is the material world. Everyone is trying to become master through various devices, although everyone is a servant of his senses. Following this system, a living entity, although servant of his senses, tries to become master of the whole universe. Hiranyakashipu was a typical example of this, and Brahma was informed by the demigods of his intentions. Text 13. O Lord Brahma, your position within this universe is certainly most auspicious for everyone, especially the cows and brahmanas. Brahminical culture and the protection of cows can be increasingly glorified, and thus all kinds of material happiness, opulence, and good fortune will automatically increase. But unfortunately, if Hiranyakashipu occupies your seat, everything will be lost. Purport. In this verse, the words Dvijagavam Parameshcham indicate the most exalted position of the brahmanas, Brahminical culture, and the cows. In Vedic culture, the welfare of the cows and the welfare of the brahmanas are essential. Without a proper arrangement for developing Brahminical culture and protecting cows, all the affairs of administration will go to hell. Being afraid that Hiranyakashipu would occupy the post of Brahma, all the demigods were extremely disturbed. Hiranyakashipu was a well-known demon, and the demigods knew that if demons and rakshasas were to occupy the supreme post, Brahminical culture and protection of cows would come to an end. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the original proprietor of everything is Lord Krishna, Bhoktaram, Jagyatabasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. The Lord therefore knows particularly well how to develop the material condition of living entities within this material world. In every universe, there is one Brahma engaged on behalf of Lord Krishna, as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Tene Brahma Rida Yaadi Kavaye. The principal creator in each Brahmanda is Lord Brahma, who imparts Vedic knowledge to his disciples and sons. On every planet, the king or supreme controller must be a representative of Brahma. Therefore, if a Rakshasa, or demon, were situated in Brahma's post, then the entire arrangement of the universe, especially the protection of the Brahminical culture and cows, would be ruined. All the demigods anticipated this danger, and therefore they went to request Lord Brahma to take immediate steps to thwart Hiranyakashipu's plan. In the beginning of creation, Lord Brahma was attacked by two demons, Madhu and Kaitaba, but Krishna saved him. Therefore Krishna is addressed as Madhu Kaitaba Hantri. Now again Hiranyakashipu was trying to replace Brahma. The material world is so situated that even the position of Lord Brahma, not to speak of ordinary living entities, is sometimes in danger. Nonetheless, until the time of Hiranyakashipu, no one had tried to replace Lord Brahma. Hiranyakashipu, however, was such a great demon that he maintained this ambition. The word bhuyai, bhutyai, means for increasing opulence, and the word shreyase refers to ultimately returning home back to Godhead. In spiritual advancement, one's material position improves at the same time that the path of liberation becomes clear and one is freed from material bondage. If one is situated in an opulent position in spiritual advancement, his opulence never decreases. Therefore, such a spiritual benediction is called bhuti or vibhuti. Krishna confirms this in Bhagavad Gita, Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam mamate chong shasambhavam. If a devotee advances in spiritual consciousness and thus becomes materially opulent also, his position is a special gift from the Lord. Such opulence is never to be considered material. At the present, especially on this planet Earth, the influence of Lord Brahma has decreased considerably, and the representatives of Hiranyakashipu, the Rakshasas and demons, have taken charge. Therefore, there is no protection of Brahminical culture and cows, which are the basic prerequisites for all kinds of good fortune. This age is very dangerous because society is being managed by demons and Rakshasas. Text 14. O king, thus being informed by the demigods, the most powerful Lord Brahma, accompanied by Bhrigu, Daksha, and other great sages, immediately started for the place where Hiranyakashipu was performing his penances and austerities. Purport. Lord Brahma was waiting for the austerities performed by Hiranyakashipu to mature, so that he could go there and offer benedictions according to Hiranyakashipu's desire. Now, taking the opportunity of being accompanied by all the demigods and great saintly persons, Brahma went there to award him the benediction he desired. 15 and 16. Lord Brahma, who was carried by a swan airplane, at first could not see where Hiranyakashipu was, for Hiranyakashipu's body was covered by an anthill and by grass and bamboo sticks. Because Hiranyakashipu had been there for a long time, the ants had devoured his skin, fat, flesh, and blood. Then Lord Brahma and the demigods spotted him, resembling a cloud-covered sun, heating all the world by his austerity. Struck with wonder, Lord Brahma began to smile, and then addressed him as follows. Purport. The living entity can live merely by his own power, without the help of skin, marrow, bone, blood, and so on. Because it is said, Asango yayam purusha. The living entity has nothing to do with the material covering. Hiranyakashipu performed a severe type of tapasya, austerity, for many long years. Indeed, it is said that he performed the tapasya for 100 heavenly years. Since one day of the demigods equals 6 of our months, certainly this was a very long time. By nature's own way, his body had been almost consumed by earthworms, ants, and other parasites, and therefore even Brahma was at first unable to see him. Later, however, Brahma could ascertain where Hiranyakashipu was, and Brahma was struck with wonder to see Hiranyakashipu's extraordinary power to execute tapasya. Anyone would conclude that Hiranyakashipu was dead because his body was covered in so many ways. But Lord Brahma, the supreme living being in this universe, could understand that Hiranyakashipu was alive, but covered by material elements. It is also to be noted that although Hiranyakashipu performed this austerity for a long, long time, he was nonetheless known as a Daitya and Rakshasa. It will be seen from verses to follow that even great saintly persons could not perform such a severe type of austerity. Why then was he called a Rakshasa and Daitya? It is because whatever he did was for his own sense gratification. His son Prahlad Maharaj was only 5 years old, and so what could Prahlad do? Yet simply by performing a little devotional service, according to the instructions of Narada Muni, Prahlad became so dear to the Lord that the Lord came to save him, whereas Hiranyakashipu, in spite of all his austerities, was killed. This is the difference between devotional service and all other methods of perfection. One who performs severe austerities for sense gratification is fearful to the entire world, whereas a devotee who performs even a slight amount of devotional service is a friend to everyone. Suridam sarvabhutanam. Since the Lord is the well-wisher of every living entity, and since a devotee assumes the qualities of the Lord, a devotee also acts for everyone's good fortune by performing devotional service. Thus, although Hiranyakashipu performed such a severe austerity, he remained a Daitya and Rakshasa, whereas Prahlad Maharaj, although born of the same Daitya father, became the most exalted devotee and was personally protected by the Supreme Lord. Bhakti is therefore called Sarvopadi Vinirmuktam, indicating that a devotee is freed from all material designations and Anyabhilashita Shunyam, situated in a transcendental position, free from all material desires. Lord Brahma said, O son of Kashyapa Muni, please get up, please get up. All good fortune unto you. You are now perfect in the performance of your austerities, and therefore I may give you a benediction. You may now ask from me whatever you desire, and I shall try to fulfill your wish. Purport. Srila Madhvacharya quotes from the Skanda Purana, which says that Hiranyakashipu, having become a devotee of Lord Brahma, who was known as Hiranyagarbha, and having undergone a severe austerity to please him, is also known as Hiranyaka. Rakshasas and demons worship various demigods such as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, just to take the post of these demigods. This we have already explained in previous verses. 18. I have been very much astonished to see your endurance. In spite of being eaten and bitten by all kinds of worms and ants, you are keeping your life air circulating within your bones. Certainly this is wonderful. Purport. It appears that the soul can exist even through the bones, as shown by the personal example of Hiranyakashipu. When great yogis are in samadhi, even when their bodies are buried and their skin, marrow, blood, and so on have all been eaten, if only their bones remain, they can exist in a transcendental position. Very recently, an archaeologist published findings indicating that Lord Christ, after being buried, was exhumed, and that when he went, and then he went to Kashmir. There have been many actual examples of yogis being buried in trance and exhumed alive and in good condition several hours later. A yogi can keep himself alive in a transcendental state, even if buried not only for many days, but for many years. Text 19. Even saintly persons like Bhrigu, born previously, could not perform such severe austerities, nor will anyone in the future be able to do so. Who within these three worlds can sustain his life without even drinking water for 100 celestial years? Purport. It appears that even if a yogi does not drink a drop of water, he can live for many, many years by the yogic process, though his outer body be eaten by ants and moths. 19. My dear son of Diti, with your great determination and austerity, you have done what was impossible, even for great saintly persons, and thus I have certainly been conquered by you. Purport. In regard to the word jita, Srila Madhva Muni gives the following quotation from the Shabda Nirnaya. Parabhutam bhashastam cha jitabid uchache buddhi buddhahi. If one comes under someone else's control or is defeated by another, he is called jita. Hiranyakashipu's austerities was so great and wonderful that even Lord Brahma agreed to be conquered by him.
O best of the Asuras, for this reason I am now prepared to give you all benedictions according to your desire. I belong to the celestial world of demigods, die like human beings. Therefore, although you are subject to death, your audience with me will not go in vain. Purport. It appears that human beings and Asuras are subject to death, whereas demigods are not. The demigods who reside with Lord Brahma in Satyaloka go to Vaikuntha Loka in their present bodily constructions at the time of dissolution. Therefore, although Hiranyakashipu had undergone severe austerities, Lord Brahma predicted that he had to die. He could not become immortal or even gain equal status with the demigods. The great austerities and penances he had performed for so many years could not give him protection from death. This was foretold by Lord Brahma. Sridharna Muni continued, after speaking these words to Hiranyakashipu, Lord Brahma, the original being of this universe, who is extremely powerful, sprinkled transcendental, infallible spiritual water from his kamandalu upon Hiranyakashipu's body, which had been eaten away by ants and moths. Thus he enlivened Hiranyakashipu. Purport. Lord Brahma is the first created being within this universe and is empowered by the Supreme Lord to create. Teni Brahma Hrida Adi Kaviye, the Adi Deva, the Adi Kavi, the first living creature, was personally taught by the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the heart. There was no one to teach him, but since the Lord is situated within Brahma's heart, Brahma was educated by the Lord himself. Lord Brahma, being especially empowered, is infallible in doing whatever he wants. This is the meaning of the word Amoga Radhasa. He desired to restore Hiranyakashipu's original body, and therefore, by sprinkling transcendental water from his water pot, he immediately did so. 23. As soon as he was sprinkled with the water from Lord Brahma's water pot, Hiranyakashipu arose, endowed with a full body, with limbs so strong that they could bear the striking of a thunderbolt. With physical strength and a bodily luster resembling molten gold, he emerged from the anthill a completely young man, just as fire springs from fuel wood. Purport. Hiranyakashipu was revitalized so much so that his body was quite confident to tolerate the striking of thunderbolts. He was now a young man with a strong body and a very beautiful bodily luster resembling molten gold. This is the rejuvenation that took place because of his severe austerity and penance. 24. Seeing Lord Brahma present before him in the sky, carried by his swan airplane, Hiranyakashipu was extremely pleased. He immediately fell flat with his head on the ground and began to express his obligation to the Lord. Purport. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 9:23-24, Ye pyanya devata bhakta yajante shraddhayanvita tepi ma'ameva kaunteya yajanta vidipurvakam yajanta vidipurvakam yajanta vidipurvakam aham hi sarva jagnanam bhukta cha prabhurevacha natu mam abhijananti tapvinatas chavanti te tapvinatas chavanti te tapvinatas chavanti te. Whatever a man may sacrifice to other gods, O son of Kunti, is really meant for me alone, but it is offered without true understanding. I am the only enjoyer and the only object of sacrifice. Those who do not recognize my true transcendental nature fall down. In effect, Krishna says, persons engaged in the worship of demigods are not very intelligent, although such worship is indirectly offered to me. For example, when a man pours water on the leaves and branches of a tree without pouring water on the root, he does so without sufficient knowledge or without observing regulative principles. The process of watering a tree is to pour water on the root. Similarly, the process of rendering service to different parts of the body is to supply food to the stomach. The demigods are, so to speak, different officers and directors in the government of the Supreme Lord. One has to follow the laws made by the government, not by the officers or directors. Similarly, everyone is to offer his worship to the Supreme Lord only. That will automatically satisfy the different officers and directors of the Lord. The officers and directors are engaged as representatives of the government, and to offer some bribe to the officers and directors is illegal. This is stated in Bhagavad Gita as a viti purvakam. In other words, Krishna does not approve the unnecessary worship of demigods. In Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that there are many types of yajna performances recommended in the Vedic literatures, but actually all of them are meant for satisfying the Supreme Lord. Yajna means Vishnu. In the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that one should work only for satisfying yajna or Vishnu. The perfectional form of human civilization known as Varnashrama Dharma is specifically meant for satisfying Vishnu. Therefore, Krishna says, I am the enjoyer of all sacrifices because I am the Supreme Master. However, less intelligent persons, without knowing this fact, worship demigods for temporary benefit. Therefore, they fall down to material existence and do not achieve the desired goal of life. If, however, anyone has a material desire to be fulfilled, he had better pray for it to the Supreme Lord, although that is not pure devotion, and he will thus achieve the desired result. Although Hiranyakashipu offered his obeisances unto Lord Brahma, he was strongly inimical toward Lord Vishnu. This is the symptom of an asura. Asuras worship the demigods as being separate from the Lord, not knowing that all the demigods are powerful because of being servants of the Lord. If the Supreme Lord were to withdraw the powers of the demigods would no longer be able to offer benedictions to their worshippers. The difference between a devotee and a non-devotee or asura is that a devotee knows that Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that everyone derives power from him. Without worshipping the demigods for particular powers, a devotee worships Lord Vishnu, knowing that if he desires a particular power, he can get that power while acting as Lord Vishnu's devotee. Therefore, in the Shastra, Bhagavatam 2.3.10, it is recommended, Akama sarvakamo va mokshakama udadati tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param yajeta purusham param yajeta purusham param. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of material desires, free from material desires, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Whole, the personality of Godhead. Even if a person has material desires, instead of worshipping the demigods, he should pray to the Supreme Lord so that his connection with the Supreme Lord will be established and he will be saved from becoming a demon or a non-devotee. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya gives the following quotation from the Brahma Tarka. From where? Ekastanaika karyatvad Vishnu pradhanyatastata jivasya tad adhinatvam na binat taikrikam vacha. Since Vishnu is the supreme, by worshipping Vishnu one can fulfill all one's desires. There is no need to divert one's attention to any demigod. Text number 25. Then getting up from the ground and seeing Lord Brahma before him, the head of the Daityas was overwhelmed by jubilation. With tears in his eyes, his whole body shivering, he began praying in a humble mood, with folded hands and a faltering voice, to satisfy Lord Brahma.
(26 and 27). Interesting. Yeah, because the Sanskrit says Shri Hiranyakashipur Uvacha, and there's no Hiranyakashipu said in the translation. Could you make a note of that? So I can... But we can't change anything. Let me off...
Because maybe it says it in the previous verse.
And I don't... No, then it should say... No. That's not normally the way it's not done. Anyway, I'll put it to Dravid and he can make up his mind. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord within this universe. At the end of each day of his life, the universe is fully covered with dense darkness by the influence of time. And then again, during his next day, that self-effulgent Lord, by his own effulgence, manifests, maintains, and destroys the entire cosmic manifestation through the material energy, which is invested with the three modes of material nature. He, Lord Brahma, is the shelter of those modes of nature, Sattvaguna, Rajaguna, and Tamaguna. Purport. The words Abhivanag Jagadidam refer to him who creates this cosmic manifestation. The original creator is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Janmad Yasyayataha. Lord Brahma is the secondary creator. When Lord Brahma is empowered by Lord Krishna as the engineer to create this phenomenal world, he becomes the supremely powerful feature within this universe. The total material energy is created by Krishna, and later, taking advantage of all that has necessarily been created, Lord Brahma engineers the entire phenomenal universe. At the end of Lord Brahma's day, everything up to Swargaloka is inundated with water, and the next morning, when there is darkness in the universe, Brahma again brings the phenomenal manifestation into existence. Therefore he is described here as he who manifests this universe. Trin Gunan Vrinoti. Lord Brahma takes advantage of the three modes of material nature. Prakriti, material nature, is described here as Trivrita. the source of the three material modes. Srila Madhvacharya comments in this connection that Trivrta means Prakritya. Thus Lord Krishna is the original creator and Lord Brahma is the original engineer. Text 28. I offer my obeisances to the original personality within this universe, Lord Brahma, who is cognizant and who can apply his mind and realized intelligence in creating this cosmic manifestation. It is because of his activities that everything within the universe is visible. He is therefore the cause of all manifestations. Purport. The Vedanta Sutra begins by declaring that the Absolute Person is the original source of all creation, Jadmadyasya Janmadyasya Yataha. One may ask whether Lord Brahma is the Supreme Absolute Person. No, the Supreme Absolute Person is Krishna. Brahma receives his mind, intelligence, materials, and everything else from Krishna, and then he becomes the secondary creator, the engineer of this universe. In this regard, we may note that the creation does not take place accidentally because of the explosion of a chunk. Such nonsensical theories are not accepted by Vedic students. The first created living being is Brahma, who is endowed with perfect knowledge and intelligence by the Lord. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Tenhi Brahma Rida Ya Adi Kavaye. Although Brahma is the first created being, he is not independent, for he receives help from the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his heart. There is no one but Brahma at the time of creation, and therefore he receives intelligence directly from the Lord through the heart. This has been discussed in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Brahma is described in this verse as the original cause of the cosmic manifestation, and this applies to his position in the material world. There are many, many such controllers, all of whom are created by the Supreme Lord Vishnu. This is illustrated by an incident described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. When the Brahma of this particular universe was invited by Krishna to Dwarka, he thought that he was the only Brahma. Therefore, when Krishna inquired from his servant which Brahma was at the door to visit, Lord Brahma was surprised. He replied that, of course, Lord Brahma, the father of the four Kumaras, was waiting at the door. Later, Lord Brahma asked Krishna why he had inquired which Brahma had come. He was then informed that there are millions of other Brahmas, because there are millions of universes. Krishna then called all the Brahmas, who immediately came to visit him. The Chaturmukha Brahma, the four-headed Brahma of this universe, thought himself a very insignificant creature in the presence of so many Brahmas with so many heads. Thus, although there is a Brahma who is the engineer of each universe, Krishna is the original source of all of them. 29. Your Lordship, being the origin of the life of this material world, is the master and controller of the living entities, both moving and stationary, and you inspire their consciousness. You maintain the mind and the acting and knowledge-acquiring senses, and therefore you are the great controller of all the material elements and their qualities, and you are the controller of all desires. Purport. In this verse it is clearly indicated that the original source of everything is life. Brahma was instructed by the supreme life, Krishna. Krishna is the supreme living entity, Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanas, Chaitananam. And Brahma is also a living entity, but the original source of Brahma is Krishna. Therefore Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mattak Paratanam Nanyat Kinchidasti Dhananjaya. O Arjuna, there is no truth superior to me. Krishna is the original source of Brahma, who is the original source of this universe. Brahma is a representative of Krishna, and therefore all the qualities and activities of Krishna are also present in Lord Brahma. Text 30. My dear Lord, by your form as the Vedas personified, and through knowledge relating to the activities of all the Yajna Brahmanas, you spread the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies of the 7 kinds of sacrifices, headed by Agnishtama. Indeed, you inspire the Yajna Brahmanas to perform the rituals mentioned in the 3 Vedas. Being the Supreme Soul, the Super Soul of all living entities, you are beginningless, endless, and omniscient, beyond the limits of time and space. Purport. The Vedic ritualistic ceremonies, the knowledge thereof, and the person who agrees to perform them are inspired by the Supreme Lord. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Mattak Smriti Jnanam Apavanamcha. From the Lord come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. The Super Soul is situated in everyone's heart. Sarvasya chaham riddhisanavista ishvara sarvabhutanam riddhicher janatishtati. And when one is advanced in Vedic knowledge, the Super Soul gives him directions. Acting as the Super Soul, or acting as Super Soul, the Lord gives inspiration to a suitable person to perform the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. In this connection, 4 classes of priests, known as Ritvik, are required. They are mentioned as Hota, Advaryu, Brahma, and Udgata.
31. O my Lord, your lordship is eternally awake, seeing everything that happens. As eternal time, you reduce the duration of life for all living entities through your different parts, such as moments, seconds, minutes, and hours. Nonetheless, you are unchanged, resting in one place as the Supersoul, witness and Supreme Lord, the birthless, all-pervading controller who is the cause of life for all living entities. Purport. In this verse, the word Kutastha is very important. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated everywhere, He is the central, unchanging point. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridayashardunachistati. The Lord is situated in full in the core of everyone's heart. As indicated in the Upanishads by the word ekatvam, although there are millions and millions of living entities, the Lord is situated as the Supersoul in every one of them. Nonetheless, He is one in many. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, Advaitam Achutam Anadim Anantarupam. He has many forms, yet they are Advaita, one and unchanging. Since the Lord is all-pervading, He is also situated in eternal time. The living entities are described as parts and parcels of the Lord because He is the life and soul of all living entities. Being situated within their hearts as the Antaryami, as enunciated by the philosophy of inconceivable oneness and difference, Achintya Bhedabhed. Since the living entities are part of God, they are one in quality with the Lord, yet they are different from Him. The Supersoul who inspires all living entities to act is one and changeless. There are varieties of subjects, objects, and activities, yet the Lord is one. 32. There is nothing separate from you, whether it be better or lower, stationary or moving. The knowledge derived from the Vedic literature like the Upanishads and from all the sub-limbs of the original Vedic knowledge form your external body. You are Hiranyagarbha, the reservoir of the universe. But nonetheless, being situated as the Supreme Controller, you are transcendental to the material world, which consists of the 3 modes of material nature. Everyone okay? Two people, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5, 6, 7. The word para means the supreme cause, and apara means the effect. The supreme cause is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the effect is material nature. The living entities, both moving and non-moving, are controlled by the Vedic instructions in art and science. What are the living entities, both moving and non-moving, controlled by? Vedic instructions in? That sounds like fun. And therefore, they are all expansions of the external energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the center, as the Supersoul. The Brahmandas, the universes, exist during the duration of a breath of the Supreme Lord. Yashtai kanishvasitakalamatavalamya jivanti lomavalajajagadundanatha. Thus, they are also within the womb of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mahavishnu. Nothing, therefore, is separate from the Supreme Lord. This is the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. True or false? There are a few things in the universe that are separate from the Lord, according to the law of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. True or false? You sure? Okay. 33. O my Lord, being changelessly situated in your own abode, you expand your universal form within this cosmic manifestation, thus appearing to taste the material world. You are Brahman, the Supersoul, the oldest, the personality of Godhead. Purport. It is said that the absolute truth appears in three features, namely, impersonal Brahman, localized Supersoul, point to the Supersoul, and ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. The cosmic manifestation is the gross material body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who enjoys the taste of the material mellows by expanding his parts and parcels, the living entities. Now that's interesting. Come on, give me a break. Who are qualitatively one with him. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, is situated in the Vaikuntha planets, where he enjoys the spiritual mellows. Therefore, the one absolute truth, Bhagavan, pervades all his material cosmic manifestation, the spiritual Brahman effulgence. Therefore, the one absolute truth, Bhagavan, pervades all by his material cosmic manifestation, the spiritual Brahman effulgence, and his personal existence as the Supreme Lord. Radhika, question. Using up his 4-question quota per session.
Can you elaborate on these material mellows? What does it mean? That the Lord is enjoying his...
The living entities, through the living entities.
How?
The living entities come in contact with the material modes of nature and taste the various fruits from the modes of material nature.
You know, the living entities in touch with the material nature, they are suffering, and
correct.
You know. So, I mean, I don't remember reading this anywhere else. Actually, this.
Well, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Adi Leela, there's a discussion of how the absolute truth means that everything has to be included. That's an awkward way of saying it, but the point is, there has to be the infinitesimal, and there has to be the infinite, in order to be the concept of the absolute truth. It's all-encompassing, in other words. Now, if you have an infinitesimal that's unconscious, it doesn't mean anything. The infinitesimal also has to be conscious, and it has to also have freedom. And it can also reside within the lower modes of material nature, and taste those modes of material nature. So they're a part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's all-encompassing for the absolute truth. Everything's there within the absolute truth. And therefore, it's said here that the living entities, as parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are tasting the mellows of the material world. It doesn't say that it's a superior taste. It just says that they're tasting them, which is, there's no doubt about that. Purusha prakritisto hi bhunte prakriti jan gunan karanam gunasangosya sarasad yoni Sadasad is the taste. Sadasad yoni janmasu. So it gives a complete picture of the absolute whole. But it's simultaneously one and different, so it's not that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is becoming covered by the lower modes. That's the genius of the whole thing, is that, it's the absolute truth, but it's also not Krishna. And he says that at the beginning of the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Although I'm everywhere, although I enter within everything, even as the living entities, still I have my own separate existence. That's my mystic power, my most mystic potency. I'm still aloof from everything, even as I'm the absolute truth in everything and experiencing everything everywhere. You're welcome. What number, Sami Prash? Where at 34? Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme, who in his unlimited, unmanifested form has expanded the cosmic manifestation, the form of the totality of the universe. He possesses external and internal energies, and the mixed energy called the marginal potency, which consists of all the living entities. Purport: the Lord is endowed with unlimited potencies, parasa shaktir vividaiva shuyate, which are summarized as three, namely external, internal, and marginal. The external potency manifests his material world, this material world. The internal potency manifests the spiritual world, and the marginal potency manifests the living entities, who are mixtures of the internal and external. The living entity, being part and parcel of Parabrahman, is actually internal potency. But because of being in contact with the material energy, he is an emanation of material and spiritual energies. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is above the material energy and is engaged in spiritual pastimes. The material energy is only an external manifestation of his pastimes. The material energy is only an external manifestation of his pastimes. 35. O my Lord, O best of the givers of benediction, if you will kindly grant me the benediction I desire, please let me not meet death from any of the living entities created by you. Purport: after being created from the navel of Garbhodakshai Vishnu, Lord Brahma, the original created living being within the universe, created many other different types of living entities to reside in this universe. Therefore, from the beginning of creation, the living entities were born of a superior living entity. Ultimately, Krishna, the supreme living being, Krishna is the supreme living being, the father of all others. Aham bija pradapita. He is the seed-giving father of all living entities. Thus far, Hiranyakashipu has adored Lord Brahma as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and has expected to become immortal by the benediction of Lord Brahma. Now, however, having come to understand that even Lord Brahma is not immortal, because at the end of the millennium, Lord Brahma will also die, Hiranyakashipu is very carefully asking him for benedictions that will be almost as good as immortality. His first proposal is that he not be killed by any of the different forms of living entities created by Lord Brahma within this material world.
Okay, here he goes. Trying to become immortal by tricking Lord Brahma, who he's pretending to worship as God. Grant me that I will not die within any residence or outside any residence during the daytime or at night, nor on the ground or in the sky. Grant me that my death not be brought about by any being created by someone other than you, nor by any weapon. That was an important point. There's some loopholes here. nor by any weapon, nor by any human being or animal. Purport. Hiranyakashipu was very much afraid of Vishnu's becoming an animal to kill him, because his brother had been killed by Vishnu when the Lord took the shape of a boar. He was therefore very careful to guard against all kinds of animals. But even without taking the shape of an animal, Vishnu could kill him by hurling his Sudarshan chakra, which can go anywhere without the Lord's physical presence. Therefore, Hiranyakashipu was careful to guard against all kinds of weapons. He guarded against all kinds of time, space, and countries, because he was afraid of being killed by someone else in another land. There are many other planets, higher and lower, and therefore he prayed for the benediction of not being killed by any resident of any of these planets. There are three original deities, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara. Hiranyakashipu knew that Brahma would not kill him, but he also wanted not to be killed by Lord Vishnu or Lord Shiva. Consequently, he prayed for such a benediction. Thus, Hiranyakashipu thought himself securely protected from any kind of death caused by any living entity within this universe. He also carefully guarded against natural death, which might take place within his house or outside of the house. 37 and 38. Grant me that I not meet death from any entity, living or non-living. Grant me further that I not be killed by any demigod or demon, or by any great snake from the lower planets. Since no one can kill you in the battlefield, you have no competitor. Therefore, grant me the benediction that I too may have no rival. Give me sole lordship over all the living entities and presiding deities, and give me all the glories obtained by that position. Furthermore, give me all the mystic powers attained by long austerities and the practice of yoga, for these cannot be lost at any time. Purport. Lord Brahma obtained his supreme position due to long austerities and penances, mystic yoga, meditation, and so on. Hiranyakashipu wanted a similar position. The ordinary powers achieved by mystic yoga, austerities, and other processes are sometimes vanquished, but the powers obtained by the mercy of the Lord are never vanquished. Hiranyakashipu therefore wanted a benediction that would never be vanquished. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 7th canto's 3rd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Hiranyakashipu's Plan to Become Immortal